Have you ever wanted to use Chrome in incognito mode and then you notice this happening fairly often? And then you decide to compare with other browsers, only to find out that this doesn't happen on other browsers? Well, I've had this happen to me quite a few times over the last few months, and I did find it pretty weird. But why does it happen in the first place? And why on Chrome specifically? And what challenge does that bring to privacy? Stick around for this video and let's find out. Okay, so for us to understand what's actually happening, we first need to look at two elements. The first being incognito or private browsing windows, and the second being CAPTCHAs. Now for a long time, private browsing has been a prominent feature of modern web browsers under different names, with examples like Chrome's Incognito and Edge's InPrivate. The general aim here is to support user privacy by creating a temporary session that prevents the browser from saving local data once the private window is closed. This data includes your browsing history and cookies that would otherwise be recorded if you were using a normal browsing window. In other words, to the websites that you visit, you may look like a new user with every private browsing instance, but this is basically all you get from a private browsing window. It doesn't actually make you anonymous. Many things that you may be able to achieve with a VPN, you can't actually achieve with a private browsing window. This means that your IP address remains visible to websites, which allows them to track your location and identify you. They can also identify you through your device fingerprint. I actually discussed browser fingerprinting in detail in my last video, so definitely check it out if you're interested. Now, a CAPTCHA is a security tool that is used to check that a user is human and not a bot. It actually stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and humans apart.
Y'all didn't know that, huh?
It's quite a long name, but its purpose is to protect websites from spam, automated abuse, and malicious high-volume traffic. It does this by asking you to complete simple tasks like clicking a checkbox, identifying images, or solving distorted text. Back in the day, you could argue that this was a reasonably effective approach because CAPTCHAs take advantage of the fact that these tasks that I just mentioned are pretty simple for humans to solve, but for bots, they are either computationally expensive, meaning that running a bot smart enough to complete those tasks requires a lot of computing resources, or they are simply impossible to solve. Unfortunately though, the rise of AI has also meant a significant decline in the effectiveness of CAPTCHAs. Bots that have AI capabilities are able to easily solve CAPTCHAs because they've gained advanced functionality like being able to recognize text and images, and also being able to replicate human behavior. But this isn't to say that CAPTCHAs haven't had their share of improvements. There are advanced CAPTCHA-based services like reCAPTCHA, which started out as a university research project that was later acquired by Google, and HCAPTCHA, which was developed by a company called Intuition Machines. And while the general consensus seems to be that reCAPTCHA offers a better user experience than HCAPTCHA, there is still the whole privacy debate, and many actually consider HCAPTCHA to offer more privacy than reCAPTCHA. But back to the main discussion, why is it that you may see a lot more CAPTCHAs while using an incognito window in Chrome compared to its private browsing window equivalent in other browsers? We first need to look at why incognito or private browsing windows trigger more CAPTCHAs in the first place. Suppose you're going to work and you happen to work at an office building. This office building has a security guard at the lobby. Now you enter the lobby wearing a similar outfit every day. You greet the security guard who recognizes you because he's already seen you many times before, and he greets you back. You then take the lift to your office. This is like normal browsing, which allows websites to build some sort of a trust profile, which is why when you're doing regular browsing and you want to access a particular website, it would load without you having to deal with a CAPTCHA. Now, going back to the same example, let's say that on a particular day you decide to wear a completely different outfit, sunglasses, a hat, and also do your hair differently. The security guard may not recognize you at first, and so he may decide to stop you to confirm that you're not someone who's not supposed to be here. This is basically what happens in incognito. So instead of a website recognizing you as a regular visitor, using an incognito or private browsing window makes you appear as a stranger to that website with every new browsing session. In that sense, there is basically no trust history between you and the website that you're trying to visit. Now, this is all from a general perspective, so it can apply to private browsing windows across all browsers. But surely there is a bit more to this in Chrome's case, because as we established at the start of this video, CAPTCHAs are being triggered on Chrome far more often than in other browsers. There are some possible explanations for this. First, Google dominates the CAPTCHA market, with most CAPTCHAs on the web being powered by reCAPTCHA. Now, since Chrome is also made by Google, it's heavily integrated with Google services, and so reCAPTCHA can probably leverage more signals from Chrome than from other browsers. But more importantly, when some of those signals disappear as a result of using Incognito, reCAPTCHA is more likely to be triggered, so essentially you are seen as less trustworthy by Google's own system. The same applies to behavioral memory. During a normal browsing session, behaviors like mouse movement and scrolling patterns are remembered and are part of why websites simply let you in without triggering a CAPTCHA. If you open an Incognito window, that starts again from zero. Second, because Chrome holds a massive market share in the browser industry, it's one of the most targeted, if not the most targeted browser for bot activity. This means that most bots pretend to be Chrome, which in turn means that you, being a Chrome user, puts you at an inherent disadvantage if you want to use Incognito. Now, unfortunately, if you do want to use Incognito, this simply adds to the list of red flags and makes it even more likely that you'll be greeted by a CAPTCHA. In other words, the combination of red flags would be interpreted as closely matching bot profiles. Think about it. It's a fresh browsing session with no history, no cookies, no behavioral memory, and now we're adding the fact that Chrome is a go-to browser for bots. So what does all of this mean for user privacy? The fundamental purpose of CAPTCHAs is to ensure website security by distinguishing humans from bots. Now, from a privacy perspective, there is a positive aspect and a negative aspect. The positive aspect is pretty simple. The more CAPTCHAs stop bots, the less likely it is for data and services to be abused or compromised by unauthorized third parties. But just because user data is protected against unauthorized third parties doesn't mean that web browsing privacy is guaranteed. There is still the issue that modern CAPTCHAs, especially Google's reCAPTCHA, collect too much data, like that which we discussed earlier. So in a way, CAPTCHA systems can act as tracking mechanisms that collect data across websites, and this also means that users are often being analyzed before they even see a CAPTCHA challenge. This becomes more problematic when you consider the fact that sometimes a CAPTCHA isn't even shown, but the data collection process and the resulting security decision are still happening in the background. This is an issue because users are less likely to know when and how their data is being collected, which makes it more difficult for them to give informed consent. Lastly, the notion that using an incognito window in Chrome can lead to more CAPTCHAs being triggered compared to private windows in other browsers can also imply that more user data is collected because there are more instances of data collection. But what do you think about this? Do you think Chrome is a lost cause when it comes to user privacy? Do you think browsers like Edge and Firefox perform better than Chrome in this area? Or do you not mind as long as the browser does its job? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. And feel free to let me know in the comments if there is anything tech you're interested in and want me to make a video about. Also, please consider supporting me by donating to my channel. I would really appreciate any support as I continue to bring fun and interesting content like this, only if you can of course. This was the Wizard of Tech, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.